is super frustrating not to be able to go outside and get on adventures right now.
So join us as we show you ways to get ready for your next adventure when this is all over.
Join the Adventure Prep series to go over things like what you should pack, how you can pack it, how to put together a good first aid kit for different trips, how to repair your gear, and more. We look forward to you joining us over the next 6 weeks. Today we're excited to talk to you about what should go in your med kit, how to inspect it, and what you should bring for different trips. So let's start with a general overview. This is a med kit that I would bring on a larger trip, a group of clients, or maybe a family. It has a lot of stuff in it for a long time, maybe backpacking. Any med kit is going to need to go into something. You can get a nice pack like this, has little straps to keep everything nice and neat. And this is really important because if you can't find what you need quickly, it can be a bad thing if there's an emergency. You can also get nice little bags that tell you what's in something. Like here we have essential tools. It can be nice, especially if they're waterproof. Starting with paperwork, you can buy little field guides and cheat sheets. I highly recommend these. Whatever your training is, you should have a guide that's going to match that training and help you out. You should also have some paperwork. Depends on, for a guide service, you have a pretty thick packet. For a personal trip, maybe just a little notebook so that you can take notes about what happened, what injuries were there. We call them soap notes in wilderness medicine, so that when someone comes who knows more than you do, you can give them the note and tell them what exactly happened and they don't have to start from scratch. Always like to have an ACE wrap in my med kit. These things are great. They are kind of elastic, so they can give you some compression. They help with bandaging. They help with creating splints. Highly recommend putting an ACE wrap in your medical kit. Tourniquets are back in style. Make sure you have some training and know how to use a tourniquet correctly, but they can be really life-saving if something really bad happens, and they're really nice and small, fit into a medical kit. If you're going to be out in the wilderness pretty far for a long time, doing something risky, I highly recommend bringing some kind of tourniquet. Having a little packet for wound treatment, it's going to include bandages and band-aids and things like that. Always want to have some latex gloves to isolate yourself from body substances. You might run across someone with an emergency on the trail. You want to make sure that you're protected first. You don't have to worry about getting their blood or bodily fluids on you. Some hardware that's nice to have are some trauma shears. The bottom keeps you from cutting your patient. The top allows you to cut through clothes and things like that, access injuries. Some tweezers are always nice to have. And on a wilderness trip, fingernail clippers can be gold. So it would be everybody's friends 2 weeks in when everybody needs to cut their nails and you're the only ones with the fingernail clippers. Some kind of small knife is really nice, and something with pliers can be really useful. So I like to have that, especially in a bigger medical kit like this. Some safety pins can be really useful. You can disinfect them with some fire or something like that if you need to take care of blisters or you need to pop something. And you can just use them as safety pins to put things together when needed. Tape. One's medical tape, that's really useful for injuries and bandaging. One's duct tape, really useful for fixing gear, things like that. It can also be a nice stopgap if you want to fix a blister. So I always have a little bit of duct tape on me. Really nice to have a syringe if someone gets a cut, something like that, and you need to clean it out. You can go ahead and use a syringe with some disinfected water. It hurts like the dickens, but it'll get all the gravel and things out, help ensure that your patient doesn't get an infection. Nice to have a little mask. This thing is tiny and it'll protect me if I come across someone I need to do rescue breaths or CPR or something like that. Got this with me. Then I have all the medications that you might need. We'll go through these in a minute. And all the ointments, disinfectants, things like that you might need. Let's talk about what's in these little packs of medication and bandages. You want some stuff to manage pain. Ibuprofen's great. You can also use acetaminophen. That's going to be your Tylenol. Good for fevers, good for pain. I like to have some salt tabs. Maybe someone gets dehydrated, needs a little extra salt. These are good to have. Some antacid. Maybe the breakfast doctors weren't so great. This will help you out. Aspirin is pretty important for cardiac type things. It can also be used to manage pain as long as people are not allergic. Diphenhydramine or Benadryl is great for allergy type things. Some creams, good to have some hydrocortisone cream for itches, maybe poison ivy, insect bites, things like that. Got some burn cream. Burns are one of the most common injuries out camping, especially with hot water. People just pour it on their hands, stuff like that. Sting relief pads are good for bee stings. Some antiseptic towelettes for disinfecting around the wound, maybe, something like that before you bandage it up. And then some triple biotic ointment, bacitracin, Neosporin. Quick note, I used to really like having a bottle of aspirin, a bottle of ibuprofen, and so on. I'd like to have like a little tube of Neosporin or antibiotic cream. And I just found that it went bad or expired way before I'd actually use it. So it actually is more cost effective and easier to just pull one of these out and use it on for helping to clean and bandage a wound. And have the rest of them here, and you know, if all of these expire, great. It means we didn't have a lot of injuries, and I can very easily throw these away and buy some new ones instead of having to buy a tube of it all the time. Got some tincture of benzoin here. This stuff you put on things that you want to stick. So if you're trying to bind something together or get a really solid bandage on, it can be pretty useful. Just a quick note, if you have a medical kit and you have an infant with you, make sure you have infant medicine, right? You can't give an infant these pills, they can't swallow them anyway, and the dosage is just really different for infants. So make sure you bring some infant Tylenol along if that's what you need, and you're out recreating with the baby. For wounds, I like to have an assortment of different size Band-Aids, maybe some knuckle Band-Aids. I used to have a ton of different Band-Aids, and I realized that people probably aren't going to get injured that much. You just need a couple, even for a longer trip, for scraped knees, things like that. If you get a wound that you got to jam a t-shirt into to stop the bleeding, you're just not going to be thinking about these anyway. So I think make sure you have Band-Aids to cover the scrapes and scratches, and then be ready to do some wilderness medicine if you need to cover something that's a little more significant. Always have the classic size Band-Aids. I got a bunch of these, again, for the scrapes, scratches. Some Tegaderms type bandages. These are like big clear patches that you can put on maybe an abrasion, maybe you really skin your elbow or something. Those will keep the germs out, help it to heal faster and keep it from drying up. Some gauze pads you can put some antibiotic cream or something like that, moisten the pad, put it on your wounds. These are really useful to help keep the bleeding down, help control that, and keep things nice and clean. Good old moleskin. This is great for managing blisters and hot spots. You can also use medical tape or duct tape in a pinch. So I don't bring a whole lot of this. I used to have a lot in my pack. I don't need the weight, I just bring a little bit now. And it's good to have some swabs so you're not trying to swab things with your fingers. I like to have a little plastic bag, Ziploc or something for all of these, because if they get wet, they're not going to work. What's a little bit scary about medicine in the wilderness, and what's really cool about it, is you're all alone and you have to make the decisions to help keep your party safe. So while your medical kit might have a lot of stuff in it, everything in your backpack can be used to help make a situation better in a wilderness medical scenario. So some things that I have in my backpack that aren't ever going to be in my medical kit, but I always have with me for medical purposes, are maybe a SAM splint. You can use lots of things to splint, but this is a very light and easy way to build a splint if someone has a fracture or a sprain. I'm going to make sure I have some extra water so that if I need to irrigate a wound or something like that, I have disinfected water. And sometimes people just get dehydrated. It's good to be, as a trip leader, have extra water to make sure that you can cover that. I'm going to have my larger knife in my pack. It might be useful. I might not want to use a tiny knife that I have in my med kit. I can use this absolutely. If I get lost, or maybe the trip takes longer than I expected, it's nice to have a headlamp for that. And it's also nice, maybe someone has a sore throat or something like that, or their ears hurt. I can kind of do the doctor thing, look in their throat, look in their ears, try to get a sense of what's going on and how serious it is. I have my hygiene kit where I have some soap if I need to help clean out a wound or something like that. I always bring more food than I plan to eat because sometimes people don't bring enough food and they get hypoglycemic and they're not going to be able to function well. Or if someone's getting hypothermic, my first go-to is give some sugar because the body needs that sugar to shiver and get warmed up. Always like to bring sunscreen. We're partnering with Active Life. They do mineral-based sunscreen. It's awesome. Nice and smooth, just takes a little bit, keeps you safe from the sun. And it's nice, you never know what's going to happen if you go from a 3-hour day hike to all of a sudden you're out there for 24 hours because of an injury. It's nice to have something in your back pocket, like an energy drink. We're partnered with Ruckpack, absolutely love this stuff. When things get really tough, this is what I take, but it could be caffeine pills or whatever energy drink that you like, the small, light, fits in your pack. If you need to splint something or create protection with a tarp, it's really nice to have a hiking pole. You can take this thing apart. I can use it to put in splints. I can put up a tarp to keep my patient nice and dry. If it's raining out and I'm worried about hypothermia, always nice to have this along. This is a skier's tool, a volet strap. It's a little bit stretchy and creates nice compression. And what's really cool is I can just take it, wrap it onto the ski pole. And now I've got this thing with me. I don't have to worry about it. Won't forget it. It's always just on the ski pole. So volet straps can be really useful, particularly for skiers, but for anyone, it's nice to repair gear, stuff like that. And then finally, it's really nice to have a pad. If someone is incapacitated, maybe they have an unusable injury, they can't move, it's really good to have a pad to put them on, keep them warm, keep them off the ground. You can also use this, maybe wrap it around an arm or something if there's a fracture and create a nice splint with it. Just really good to have this with you, and it's super light. So you might buy a small one, like one of the ones that are made just to sit on. It's nice for you, keep you comfortable with your hot chocolate at lunch, or if you need it in an emergency, super useful. You might be thinking, wow, Knight, that's a lot of stuff to put in a pack if I just want to go for a day hike at Mission Trails, and you're right. So some other options depending on what you're doing. What I just showed you, again, a backpacking trip with a family, or taking a bunch of people out on a company trip. But if you're doing something lighter, we like to put something like this. You can buy it, at REI. If you're gonna do a little bit more, you can buy a bigger pre-made pack. These things are great, and you can just supplement with whatever else you want. So this is for a rock climbing trip. We've got a pre-made pack with most of what we need. And then we have some gloves, just in case we run across someone else who needs help. We've got a little tiny knife, because that's gonna be really useful for emergency, for whatever you might need to cut. Emergency blankets are great. It's like it's a very light way to have some safety and warmth in case of hypothermia, maybe get stuck out overnight, something like that. The all-present duct tape, help fix gear, whatever you need, and patch you up. And just one safety pin this time, and some tweezers. And then depending on what you're doing, you might change it up. So this is all stuff for a ski trip. Just a couple quick notes to close. One, make sure you have the right training to use this stuff. It's one thing to buy a nice kit from an outdoor store, and it's another to know how to use it. So look for a WFA or a WFR course, Wilderness First Aid or Wilderness First Responder. Lots of good people around here, REI, Golden State Guiding, are offering these courses. Make sure you use those courses so you know how to use this gear and keep yourself safe out there. The second thing is, make sure you know how to inspect this stuff. If you have a bunch of stuff like this and your tincture of benzoin breaks and it gets everything wet and sticky and your creams and medicines are all expired and you need to use them and all of a sudden you can't, it's a really bad day. So make sure every month or two, or every big trip you take, pull everything out, look at the expiration dates, make sure nothing's soaked or broken, and make sure that you're comfortable with taking your kit outside. Really appreciate you spending some time with us today, working on these skills and getting ready for your next adventure. We know it's frustrating not to be out there right now, but this is a great time to prepare. Can't wait to see you outside. Thank you.